Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a preview of Diablo 3 upcoming Season 18, patch 2.6.6. Yes, the new patch has hit the test server, which will be up for 1 week and has a bunch of balance changes, as well as the new seasonal theme, the Season of Hopscotch. I kid, it's actually a really cool seasonal theme, but it is basically the Season of Hopscotch. So the actual seasonal name is the Season of the Triune. And basically throughout the season, and only on season, anytime you hit an enemy, you have a chance to spawn a circle on the ground, similar to the power circle of the Oculus Ring. A circle will appear on the ground, and if you stand in that circle, you will receive a buff. Now, 3 potential circles can spawn. The circle of power, which doubles your damage. The circle of resource reduction, which halves your resource costs while standing in it. And the circle of cooldown, which makes any skill that you have currently on cooldown come off cooldown faster. So right off the bat, this is my favorite seasonal theme yet. People have asked me countless times, Rhykker, what kind of seasonal theme would you like to see? If you could design a seasonal theme, what would it be? And I'd answer, I'd want it to be something that changes our day-to-day experience. Our last couple seasonal themes affected builds, which, yes, allowed for a couple new builds to emerge, or slight modifications to existing builds, which was nice, but they didn't really do anything significantly different from simple balance changes. And in fact, the balance changes within the season, within the patch, often far overshadowed whatever the seasonal theme was. I wanted something that would affect our day-to-day gameplay experience. And this is exactly that. It doesn't matter whether you're level 1 or level 70. It doesn't matter whether you're doing greater rifts, regular rifts, bounties. The seasonal theme will be evident to you at all times and gameplay changing. Now, this seasonal theme will primarily benefit builds with high mobility. Why? Circle's gonna spawn, you're gonna have to get over to that circle and attack from within the circle. Only one of the 3 circles could be up at any given time. In the gameplay you're seeing in the background, I'm avoiding the cooldown circles. Why? I'm a low-level character, I don't have any cooldown skills, there's no point in me standing in the cooldown circle. But resource cost reduction and extra damage, I'm definitely going for those. Similarly, depending on what build you're playing, you may find that certain circles are more beneficial to you than others, and some may not benefit you at all. The presence of these circles is giving you something extra to focus on, some extra strategic decisions to make as you play. And while I jokingly call it the Season of Hopscotch, Season of the Triune is actually a very lore-friendly name. Apart from the word Triune itself referring to 3, as in 3 different circles, the Triune was something in Diablo lore. Hundreds of years before the events of Diablo 1, the Triune was a religion or a cult that seemed benign on its surface, but was actually secretly devoted to the 3 prime evils. That's Diablo, Baal, and Mephisto for those not following. In any event, moving along through our patch notes here after the seasonal theme. Whereas we've previously seen a lot of balance changes happen to sets, we're not seeing that this time. We're seeing new legendary powers being added to items, and other things too. Starting with the Flavor of Time now gains the effect that pylon effects last twice as long. Now for certain builds, the amulet choice isn't super important. You can go with a Hellfire, but you can also go with a different kind of amulet. So now the Flavor of Time, apart from already being an amulet that rolls with an extra affix of cooldown, will be a potentially inviting choice for greater rifting. Next we have the Executioner Axe. Attacks will slay enemies with less than 10% health. Now this is a fairly powerful effect when you're dealing with high greater rifts. Killing an enemy outright once it reaches a certain percentage of its health is something very powerful the higher in difficulty you go, because it doesn't care whether there's 1 health left or 1 trillion health left, as long as you've reached that fraction. Now that said, most builds really do hinge upon certain legendary affixes or even set weapons. My first impression is that I doubt this will actually replace anything in a build. However, if this works with followers, if our enchantress can wield one of these, then all of a sudden we have an item, a weapon, that is going to effectively be making our follower deal damage. As it stands, followers effectively do no damage to our enemies. They can crowd control, they can provide a little bit of support, but they effectively deal no damage. But with the Executioner, the Enchantress could serve to finish off Rift Guardians. This is potentially a buff to solo players. Onto our next items, the Stone Gauntlets. Getting attacked will slowly turn you to stone. What this means is you gain 50% more armor, that is more toughness, but your move speed is reduced by 15% and attack speed is reduced by 20%. This effect stacks up to 5 times. Now this is an interesting item. Right away it's not going to be used for speed builds. As you take damage you gain more toughness, but your speed slows and your attack speed slows. So you'd want to be on some kind of build that does not depend on attack speed. Because of the move speed nerf, we're again looking at some kind of a pushing build where you don't care about going super fast. And instinctively you might think, well, what about a pet build? We don't care about your attack speed on a pet build. Yeah, well actually, the amount of damage that pets deal scales off of our attack speed. So our attack speed being higher doesn't make pets attack faster, but it increases their damage. So we'll have to theory craft on this one a little more to find a build that would really benefit from this. But if you've thought of something, I encourage you to sound off in the comments. Next item is the Echoing Fury. New legendary power, slaying enemies engulfs the wielder into a frenzy. In other words, killing enemies increases your attack speed by 15% and movement speed by 5%, stacking up to 5 times. So that's up to a possible 75% increased attack speed. Now we're on the opposite side of things from the Stone Gauntlets. This is going to be for some kind of speed build. Why? Because you have to kill enemies. So if you're killing enemies quickly, you're going to keep this buff up. It's going to allow you to move faster, kill faster. The problem is that the weapon slot is a very competitive slot. We tend to see in this spot items that are required for a build. Items that buff skill damage, for instance. Maybe speed builds that use Ingums could potentially benefit from this, because not all speed builds really benefit from the cooldown reduction afforded by the Ingum, which I know most people pronounce Ingeom, but the Korean is pronounced Ingum and it's a Korean word. But I'd be surprised to see the Echoing Fury in any GR pushing builds. Onto Squirt's Necklace. New legendary power. While not taking damage, your damage is increased by up to 100% and damage taken is increased by up to 50%. This is really interesting, and again, we have builds which have neck slots that are open. Builds with Hellfire or S of Johann. Builds where that neck slot is negotiable, and I could potentially see Squirts squeezing in here. For instance, if we're replacing a Hellfire Amulet, what passive effect is equivalent to giving you double damage? None. The answer is none. Again, though, that stipulation is while not taking damage. So this is going to be for ranged builds primarily. Perhaps multi-shot. Unhallow multi-shot could use this. Next we got Mr. Smith's Reaver. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you slay an enemy. So this is similar to the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, but actually weaker, because it's when you slay an enemy rather than when you hit with a power. So this is contingent on you slaying enemies. If you're not killing lots of enemies, you're not really benefiting from this. So again, I'm seeing this more for speed builds. But again, when we're looking at speed builds, the same problem. We got those. But pretty much every build has one weapon slot item that is buffing their skill damage. And then, generally, if you can squeeze it in, an Ingum to handle the cooldown. So, Ingum reduces all of your cooldowns by 10 seconds. Whereas this one reduces one skill's cooldown by 1 second per enemy slain. Again, depending on the build. If you have a build where you just have really one ability that you want to maintain on cooldown, then the Reaver here could be really good, because you can kill 10 enemies pretty damn quickly, and that's all it takes to be competitive with Ingum. Next, for our Barbarian bros, Mortix Brace is back. This is an item that was introduced years ago on PTR, never made it to live servers, and what it does is it gives every rune to Wrath of the Berserker. Now, the typical Wrath of the Berserker rune taken is Insanity, which gives 50% more damage. The useful runes that will gain thanks to Mortix Brace include Striding Giant, which reduces all damage taken by 50%, so great source of damage reduction. And it also gives us Thrive on Chaos, which gives us some life per fury spent, which is good but not amazing. So if you have a build that uses an Aquila Cuirass in the cube, then you can substitute that for Mortix Brace for basically the same effect. Mortix Brace will be slightly better. I was really hoping the Barbarian would get some love this patch, and this is more like than love. For Witch Doctors, however, we have the Mojo Spite, which is craftable at a blacksmith, that is now being given a legendary power. Non-cleaving Gargantuans gain the cleave and chilling effects of the Humongoid rune. So for the longest time, Humongoid has basically been the only viable rune on Gargantuan. Why? Because of the cleave ability, because it hits more than just one enemy. Diablo 3 is largely a game about area damage. Some builds can super specialize in dealing single target damage, but on a pet build where you cannot focus fire your little Gargantuan, it's not going to work. Now note that this is not just giving you the Humongoid rune, because the Humongoid also deals increased damage in addition to cleaving. So this is a clever way of doing it that doesn't just make Humongoid obsolete. I'm not sure whether we will actually see the emergence of builds using different runes, but I look forward to seeing what happens. Next, we have a new legendary gem, Legacy of Dreams. While you have no set bonuses equipped, every legendary item you have equipped increases your damage dealt and reduces your damage taken. And at rank 25, this bonus is doubled for Ancients. So basically, for those of you who really like the Season of Nightmares, we now have a gem that allows you to keep that seasonal theme. You don't have to have the Legacy of Nightmares set, those 2 rings, you can just wear this gem instead. I think that's a really clever way of allowing people who wish to retain that past seasonal buff. I know a lot of people were asking that the seasonal buff of Season 17 would simply be rolled out into the base game. I think this is a happy middle ground. Next, we have some changes to crafted sets, starting with Sages. A belt has been added to the set. Why would they do this? That's simply to give you more options. It's now easier to work this set into other builds. And Hadrig automatically learns how to forge this set at rank 12. So Sage's set is used for Death's Breaths farming, but not all builds can use it because it uses helm, boots, and gloves, and some builds cannot give up those slots. The introduction of a belt item now allows this to be possible. Next, we have some big changes to the Captain Crimson set. Instead of giving us 10% cooldown reduction, it now gives us 20%. The 3-piece bonus of resource cost reduction is brought to the 2-piece bonus and is increased to 20% from 10%. And there's a completely new 3-piece bonus. Damage dealt is increased by your total percentage of cooldown reduction, and damage taken is reduced by your total percentage of resource cost reduction. Now, Captain Crimson's consists of pants, boots, and belt. So if you're running a build that could give up 2 of those slots while working in a Ring of Royal Grandeur, this could potentially be an option. If you're rocking, say, 40+% cooldown reduction, now all of a sudden that's turning into 40+% more damage. I'm interested to see how this plays into the current meta. Once again, I'm thinking of the multi-shot Demon Hunter. Its belt slot is open, it's got a Witching Hour for more damage, but this would translate into much more damage. You'd have to give up a convention of elements, but you're sacrificing situational damage for consistent damage, and you're a build that's already stacking resource cost reduction on Yang's recurve. So I can see this right away being worked into multi-shot. Next, they're buffing Ogild's Authority. The 2-piece bonus is being replaced. Now you gain 15% damage reduction and 30% more damage. And then the 3-piece bonus is doubled, reduces damage from elites by 30% instead of 15, increases damage against elites by 30 instead of 15. Now, Ogild's consists of shoulders, bracers, helm, and torso. Some builds will be able to pretty easily work in the 2-piece bonus, but the 3-piece will be a little trickier to work in. Then lastly, Kane's Destiny is being changed. The 3-piece bonus is being combined with a 2-piece bonus. And now the new 3-piece bonus is whenever a Greater Rift Keystone drops, there is a 25% chance for an extra one to drop. Now this will either be useless or useful depending on whether this means for every GR key that drops, there's a 25% chance for an extra to drop. In other words, if you would have already gotten 3 keys, then it's 25% chance, 25 and 25, rather than 3 keys drop plus a 25% chance of an extra. If that's the case, the latter, then I think that's just not enough extra chance for an extra keystone to sacrifice whatever you'd have to sacrifice, damage, toughness, speed, because you can just get more keys by going through rifts faster. So overall, I was pleasantly surprised with these patch notes. I'm especially happy with the new seasonal theme, and mostly I look forward to a solid week of testing to see what, if any, new builds can use all of these new and changed items, and I encourage you folks to sound off in the comments with your ideas. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind-the-scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.